Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative, and today we are going to work with mixed mold. I have a new mold, oval shape bowl, that I want to use. I've used it once already. I've got a bowl that needs to have some sanding down, and my issue, I didn't mix up enough of the mixed mold, so I have sanding to do to make it look better. I also have a smaller version of this one in case I have too much. I had calculated once I was finished making them to approximately how much I needed. So hopefully I don't need to go to the smaller one. Anyway, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to leave our mixed mold white. Sort of. Don't you love that? Yeah, we're going to go white, sort of. What I want to do is and I haven't done a lot of work. I remember I had done a video with the Terrazzo chips that I had put in resin because I thought, well, why not? And I can't even remember what the piece was I made anymore. But I wanted to use it in the mixed mold because I've never really worked with the mixed mold from the perspective of putting something in it and then sanding it down so that whatever you put in it was, came through like a terrazzo tile or something like that. So I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool to do that. So we're going to use the earth tone mix. I got these a long time ago when this stuff was still being sold in Michael's. So as all of you know, Michael's isn't carrying it anymore. And I now have to get it off of currently Amazon.com. And I have some new powder coming to me today, the white again. I believe, now I wasn't finding it when I was looking the other day, but I believe they have like an earth tone now powdered color out there. So again, I don't think I saw it once. It's one of those things that, all of a sudden and it disappears. So whether they sold out or whatnot, I don't know, but I have some more white coming, and I'm getting the big container, the 2.5 kilo, 5-pound container. And I got it off of Amazon.com because I can't get it on Amazon Canada. But I am finding a little bit that sometimes it's paying, being that I'm Canadian, being that our dollar isn't as strong, it's still actually paying to buy stuff off of Amazon.com with shipping, with exchange, than it is to buy on Amazon.ca. And I've got an example of that I'll share with you in my next video. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to do is, if we're going to be sanding this down because of the Terrazzo chips anyways, I am going to throw in some burnt orange glitter. I have all kinds of this stuff. I want to start using my glitter, and I want to stop being cheap about what I use because I have so much of it. So we're going to throw some of this in because I'm figuring, well, okay, if I can sand it down and get the Terrazzo chips to show up, I want to sand it down and hopefully get to see some of this burnt orange glitter. Where am I going to sand it out of the piece? Well, that's, that might happen. The other thing I'm going to do, because I can, and I want to have some fun, is I am going to throw in some FolkArt Invisible Glow paint. And I'm trying to think if I've done this before, and I can't remember, but this stuff is, and I can understand why they say invisible, because it's a clear liquid. I don't know how well you can see in there, but it's when I say clear, like it's white. So I'm guessing that it just sort of dries clear, but it still has a glowing effect to it. We're going to put some of this in as well. I have extra water in case this starts to set up and or because of the paint gets hard too quick, so I can loosen it up a little bit. I think that's everything. Let me make sure I've got and I think what I'll do is I'll put I'm still having issues with my thumb. Some of this glitter in here now and mix it up because that will make my life simpler. I don't know how much to put in here. So I've got this spoon, so I think we'll put a couple of scoops in. Like I say, got all kinds of it, so I might as well have fun with it. And I thought it would kind of go nicely with the colors, the earth tones. I also had a copper color, but I figured because this has got more of sort of the well, as I say that, orange. Does it really, Natalie? No, but they're earth tones, so the orange works for me. Now, I just want to get some stuff moved so I'm not tripping over anything. And so the other thing I want to point out, because I did not know this, they comment on the back of this that you create your mixed mold ceramic resin, you mix in the terrazzo chips and pour into mold. So that's cool, get that. It says after 48 hours of curing, sand to reveal the colorful chips. And I've seen some people who pull it out of the mold and all of a sudden just start sanding. So I'm wondering if part of that is because the piece really needs to dry out well before you start sanding it down. I may not wait the 48 hours, but I am willing to give it at least a day once we take it out of the mold. So we'll take it out of the mold, we'll see how it looks. When it comes to sanding, I'm going to be doing that out in my garage because I have enough dust from living in the country in my house. I'm not adding this to it, so I have a space out in my garage where I will sand it down, bring it back in, and you'll get to see what and or how it turned out, okay? I doubt, they show over here as well how much, you know, if you do half, if you do standard, or if you heavy load this down. I think for the size of this, I might use 1/4 to 1/2 of this in my piece. So we'll see how that goes because again, it's not something I'm familiar with working with. Now, first off, I'm going to just mix this in. I will be, when it comes to the paint, I am going to mix this up and then add the paint. I'm not going to put the paint into the water. I don't want to do that. I'm going to mix it up and then I'm going to add my paint and then I'll add my Terrazzo and Terrazzo and see how it works out. And before I go any further, for those of you who are living down in Florida that are watching me and who were impacted by Hurricane Milton, I have seen pictures. My biggest concern for things like that happen is that people are safe, that your family or extended family and any pets or farm animals. I mean, my heart goes out to the farm animals or animals in general that get left behind because they don't know what to do in this. So I don't know how much of sort of farming perhaps goes on in Florida, but I definitely feel for pets for sure. Anyway, so heart goes out to you. I hope you're doing well, that you're safe, that you're able to move on. And I have seen they're talking about other storms. So my hope is that they, you know, forget about Florida and go around you or just die out in the ocean. So please be safe for anyone who's down in Florida. Okay, let's mix this up. All right. Now it's kind of interesting how the glitter is sort of coming back together on itself, which I know sounds really weird, but if you see it there, so hopefully it will mix well. And I mean, if I get chunks of it in places, hey, then I get chunks of it. So I just want to get this moving. And I think what I'll do now is, it's not completely mixed, but I want to get my paint in there. I know I'm putting a ton of this in here, which may or may not help my cause at all, but okay, let me get that down. And let's get this mixed in. And I might put a little bit more paint in. Now I appreciate that is going to impact sort of from a liquid perspective, and I'm cool with that. Again, this is probably a piece I'll let sit for a couple of hours just to set up. You know me, I'm not one of these people who will just rip it out of the mold straight away. I don't want things to break. Yep, you can see me. I was going to say, can you see me? See how that does. No, I think that can use a little bit more. I definitely got a lot of glitter in there. Put a few more in. Okay, I've got another package of this. And I believe they have these online on Amazon.com. It's really too bad they stopped selling this at Michael's. But anyway. And you know what? Just because I can, just put a little bit more of that in. Okay, stop putting paint in, Natalie. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Let's have some fun with this. Alrighty. That there. Bring this out. I don't have my Lazy Susan. Actually, that's a lie. I do too have it. Put that on there so I can bang this around and we'll just pour, eh? Can you see that? Yeah, okay. Looks really cool. Help if I could pour it out. You know what? I love that I have silicone containers like this to use for something like this, but what I don't like is the inability to really hold on to it well. Like that I don't like. Okay, so we do have some left. Let me just tap this a little bit. That's handy. And I'm thinking I've got some, so I'm just gonna, like, I don't want all my chips on the, and it's kind of interesting because I find with these molds that they are, there's not a lot of distance between the top of this mold and where the bottom is, which is kind of surprising. I would have thought they were a little more. I've still got some room, so I'm going to put some more in. And then I think I'm going to pour the rest into it. I've got a Christmas tree over here at the side that just gets leftover stuff. I think we're pretty good there. I don't think there's really a lot of room for anything more in here. See, it's kind of interesting how all the, I was kind of hoping the glitter, and I'm sure I'll have some in it, but yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's setting there. So let's push this over a little bit because I need to, here. Okay, so I've got this funky Christmas tree. Let's put it up here and put this in because I know I don't have enough for the, oh, right. So here's going to be the interesting fact. As I do this on top of resin, yeah, I know you're thinking, what are you doing? So let's see how well this this holds together for me, right? There are just moments in my life when the light isn't on. That's okay. I can always, because I don't have enough in here, I always put resin on top. I do like the copper in it though, so I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to play out for me. So we've got that poured now. Here, let's just turn this, let's do this the smart way. I'll leave it specifically because it's got paint in it. And I don't know how that may or may not impact the mix to mold. So it's got, you know, extra liquid in it. I know that. And we will leave it a little longer. I'll watch it as it's drying to make sure it's actually drying, because that would be a real shame if it's not. And we will wait and see how it comes out. Again, we both know that when it comes to me trying to get pictures with my phone to see things glow in the dark is a challenge and then some. So you may not, but I will let you know about the whole glow in the dark situation. All right, I'm gonna let you go. going to clean up. We'll come back when it is ready to take this out of the mold, and then we'll wait at least 24 hours before I sand it down, and then we'll see how it looks. I'll see you in a bit. We are ready to take this out of its mold, and I have to admit, initially I was a little concerned because of the paint I put in here, whether or not that might impact it setting up. But as you can tell by me squeezing it here, that it has set up. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. We're going to take this out first, and like I said, you all know when I kind of poured that in there and there's resin here, whether or not we're going to stick to it. So it's so funny. I don't know how many of you do it, but you do something and go, oh, well, that might not have been a good idea. Oops. And there we have it. But, okay, so fair enough. Natalie didn't call that one at all. But, could be a stand for something, which is kind of cool because it's got the nice shape at the bottom and then these, you know, pieces here at the side. So, I mean, that would make potentially a nice stand for something. Now, I don't have anything handy to put on top of it as such. I don't think this is going to work really well for me, but because it's the, but okay. I mean, it's not ideal. Now, give me a second. Let me see what else fun and exciting I have over here that I can maybe put on it. I don't think that's going to work. I think that's going to be way too big. See about that. I think that might be too big. And I have nothing else close and convenient. So let's just see. So we could potentially do this tiny little tree here. Let's do it like that. Might make it easier. Okay, maybe do that. Yeah, put this back down because, you know, the skull. Yeah. It will sit on there, but it is too big for that, I think. I mean, but you could. Look at. Which I've been working on decorating it. I can't remember if I showed you that or not. The cat fits on it. Not the best, again, not the best plan, but the cat sits on it. You could do something like this and then decorate around it. I'm just trying to think. I don't think I have any smaller trees that are thin, and meaning that they would look proper, like that are 3D that would sit on top of that. So I don't know. Now, yeah, I might as well just take that out. I was thinking of, could I put this back down and then go from there? But yeah, best laid plans, eh, people? But you know what? As much as I did this and it didn't work out, I do like the idea of having some small trees like this. I mean, I really like this tree in general. I believe that, is it that tree? No, there's a different one I have that I've got all 3 sizes for. And this was left over from, I was making another stand for somebody and the coloring went totally wrong on it. But it's not saying you couldn't, but this could be a stand. So I'm going to keep that in mind and see what I have that potentially could sit on top of that. But again, well, we know these two don't stick together, so I could use 5-minute, well, I don't even know if 5-minute epoxy would work with that. Anyway, we weren't sure, but yep, there you go. Don't do it. All right, getting back to our main project here. I do like this mold. I'd seen it before, and I hummed and hawed, and it was just like, just buy it. See the bottom of that? It did some of the work for me. Now, there's something I was thinking about, so I hope you don't mind. I want to wipe this off while I've got it this way. And I'll properly wash this, but I just figure I might as well get the majority of that off. And then I want to go back to the directions for sanding this down for a moment, because I do have a question in case anyone else has done this before. All right, just put that back in there. And I have to wash this because it's got glitter and stuff on it. All right, so that's kind of cool that did that. So it kind of makes it easier. Oops, and my glitter's coming off, but so be it. Okay, so here's my question. So on the back of this, I read it to you earlier. It says, after 48 hours of curing, sand to reveal the colorful chips. Now, I've noticed some people use wet dry sandpaper on it. So my question to you is, if you've done this, have you used a wet dry sandpaper? Because that doesn't say that I have to do that. It just says to let it sit and then sand it. So I'm kind of curious about that. And I got a sparkle in there from something, and I don't know what. But, so we'll let it sit up. I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours, and then I want to sand it down. I'm going to be a little impatient and do it at 24 versus 48. And then we'll see how it looks. But I don't know how well you can see it, and I'm hoping that when I sand it down, again, I don't want to lose all the glitter in this. I'm hoping I can just pull the glitter through, so you might actually be able to see it. Yeah, so we'll have to see. But it, I even think sort of like that, it looks kind of cool. And the other interesting thing is going to be, because it's pulled some of that mixed mold off, I just wonder if I'm going to be left with divots in this. Anyways, I guess we're going to find out. So I'm going to put this on my baking stand so that it has air circulating all the way around it. I'll then sand it, and then I'll bring you back to see how it looks. So that's where we are now. And once I have it sanded down, you'll get to see the rest of it. I'll see you when I got that done. Hey everyone, I am back. Now you'll notice I have on my table, I have some mixed mold, I have water, and I have a couple of these small little coasters. Now you're probably wondering, Natalie, you didn't start out with these, what's going on? So I want to show you, as I get stuff off of this mold. This is a garage sale mold, but I'm not as overly concerned putting mixed mold in garage sale molds as I would resin, because we know resin can pick up pretty much anything. Okay, what am I doing? So I went and I started sanding down my bowl that I had made with the Terrazzo chips, right? So this is where I'm at now with having done some sanding. As I was sanding, so to do this took me about half an hour. And I used various grits. I started with 600, doing it wet. That didn't work for me. I dropped down to 320. That wasn't doing it for me. I dropped down to 220, and then I got down to a 120 grit. What that's been going through my mind is how much sanding you have to do, which I'm guessing is based on how much you want to see of the chips, or anything else you've embedded in the ceramic resin. But it got me thinking about the integrity of the piece you're working on. How much sanding are you going to be doing, and is that going to affect the integrity? So it was only about 24 hours. Spent a half an hour sanding with different grits. The other thing I wondered about was, okay, so I'm sanding away, and let's say, for example, this little piece color comes up, this brown here. But if I keep sanding, because I kind of want to get the other colors around it to come up, am I going to end up sanding that down so I lose that color? And I'm guessing these Terrazzo chips are made from ceramic resin. I'm just trying to see if they say anything, but I know people have been making, you know, these chips to put in their pieces. So I'm thinking it is like a ceramic resin. And, you know, if I start sanding again in one spot, am I going to, you know, get rid of a specific color? If you hear my dog barking, it's because they're digging up potatoes across the rows. So she's getting a little freaked out by everybody. But that's the other thing. So I start sanding and I get rid of one color to pull up another one. So that's something I want to keep in mind. Now, the back of this had a lot of color on it. I've sanded it a little bit. I've sanded the sides a little bit, not near what I've done the inside. You can see, I don't know how many of the chips actually made it around the side versus just sort of landing wherever. I'm not sure, but I hadn't spent any time on this trying to get it to come on the outside. But I have to admit, so if nothing else, I do like the glitter in this. And I especially like it in the inside because I had it being out in the garage. I mean, the sun was catching it, and I don't know if this is going to catch it or not. But I do like the glitter I put in there. Okay, so why am I doing this? Good question. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to see if I do it on something flat. Now, their pictures on the back of here look like, you know, they've done it using a coaster. So I thought to myself, well, maybe a coaster is better than something like this. And if you're going to do something like this, maybe it's better not to use the Terrazzo chips and use something that if you sand it, it's not going to be sanded down. So for example, pebbles, glass, that type of thing. I'm wondering if that would be a better option for a bowl. We're going to do these up. We're going to use more of these Terrazzo chips. And then we're going to let set. Once it's set, I want to see how it looks. Like I'm expecting these things to, you know, sort of settle to the bottom, and then we'll sand them down and see if it takes me less time to do that than the other. I'm not going to put in the glow-in-the-dark paint or the burnt orange glitter. These I'm just going to do mix Demold and Terrazzo chips. That's it. That's all. And then I want to do a comparison. So if I haven't asked a question, but I usually do, and I probably have, but if you've done this or something like this, I'd love to know your comments on the grit of sandpaper you've used, how much time you've spent. Are you finding sort of the same as I am, that you're sanding down one, which is taking away another? Because I think that's important to know. You know, you could sand until the cows come home, but is that really going to be worth it at the end of the day? I think it looks great. I love the look of it. I really, really do. I'm just wondering about, you know, how much sanding you put into it. And so I figure if I do these, I'm going to have less sanding to do, and I'm going to get a better result with it. So let's go ahead. Let's do this and see what ultimately happens. And I was almost wishing I had, like I have a Dremel, but I can't imagine attaching one of my sanding pieces to it because I'm going to get ruts. And I kind of have ruts in here because of the Terrazzo chips, which, again, not a big deal. Like, seriously, it's not a big deal. Okay, let's do this. How much do I have here? I have 100 grams of mixed Demold. It does give a neat effect. I will admit to that. I do like the effect of it. I just not sure I like all the sanding that went along with that. And it may, like, some of it may have to do with, you know, how much of the terrazzo chips you put in your mix too. I mean, I thought I put a lot in, but depending on where they land in your piece, that will make a difference. So we'll add, you know, sort of some extras to this. That there. Okay, let's do this. And if I can make two, I kind of like to make two. So we'll do that. These don't need to be overly thick, do they? Nope. Yeah, we'll put the rest of this in here. I feel like this one got a little shortchanged. Way the heck over there. Yeah, I am wondering if the amount you put in makes a difference too. Maybe at some point I had started making some of the chips and then I didn't use them for anything, so I ended up getting rid of them. But okay, that's where we're at now. We're going to let those sit and set. I'm going to take these out within an hour. Well, when an hour's up. Let me rephrase that, because you know how I am about that stuff. And we'll have a look and we'll see how much different it looks. And you know, part of it could be me as a user not getting enough of this stuff into it. Again, you know, they said based on, you know, sort of the effect you're wanting to get. So that's what I did. But could it be, and or do I need to use even a, you know, rougher grit, like a 100 or an 80? I don't know if it goes down to 60 or not. I have a lot, and I can't say for sure if there's a 60 grit. But yeah, I am going to be curious to know if it makes a difference. And sanding these, in my opinion, will be a lot easier than trying to do something that's in an oval shape. So that's another thing I found, that trying to sand because of the shape of the bowl was causing me a little bit of grief and maybe some extra time. So stay tuned. Let's see how these look when they're done. We're ready to take these pieces out of their molds. And sort of here is the decision I have decided to make. I am going to take one of the pieces and I'm going to let it sit overnight. And then in a 24-hour period, I'm going to take it outside to my garage and sand it down. The other one I'm going to take out right now after, you know, I stop the video and sand it. Because I want to see if there's a little bit of a difference as far as, can I get the terrazzo chips to show up better if I do it straight away versus waiting. And I appreciate that the directions say to wait 48 hours, and I'm not sure why that is. I'm not 100% sure. The other thing I want to do in a future video is I want to do a piece or pieces similar to what we've done here, but I want to use I want to use something that can't be sanded down. So we're talking glass, we're talking sand, we're talking I don't want to call them pebbles. That's not what they are, but they're not glass either. Sand chunks maybe. But they're different things I want to try because I'm really interested to see how the process is going to work. And I think it'll be helpful to me, and it may be helpful to you as well to see, okay, so if I do this, this is what I, need to look at. And if I do it this way, then this is what I need to look at, and so on and so forth. So let me, before I, sort of go off in a tangent here. So this is what we're looking at right now. So we can see a lot better in this, the terrazzo chips, than we could in the oval bowl. Again, I'm thinking that's because it's flat, because I put quite a bit in, so it's easier to see. I'm not planning on doing anything on the sides. That would just drive me nuts, so I'm not going to do that. And then this was, I think this is the top, yeah. So we'll work on, I'll sand it down. I'm going to take it out to my garage and see what happens. The other one we'll let set and see what happens. I sort of understand why they would want you to let these dry out before you sanded them, because they still are moist, so it'd probably be better for more of the moisture to be out of it. However, I want to know. I want to know if there's a difference. So stay tuned. I will bring you back basically after 24 hours once I'll take this one outside and I'll sand it now. And then once I have the one that's gotten to dry for 24 hours, once I've got it sanded, we'll come back and I'll let you know what I found through the process of it all. And in a future video, we will test how different products stand up, so you have a better idea. What do I want to put in my ceramic resin? Do I want to go this route when we're dealing with a pot, or would it be easier to do something that will, like a can't sand down? So we'll see. The other thing I was kind of thinking of when I was, after these had been built, and because of the burnt orange glitter in this, I was thinking of some of my other glitter that I have, or the chunky pieces that I have. They might be really cool to work in mixed mold, just because, yeah, you're not going to be able to sand them down. You could scratch them, but not sand them down, and they may be a better option. And the terrazzo chips, as I found in resin, is a great way to use those up if you're using a clear resin or a very soft, translucent color that would still allow your terrazzo chips to show up. So stay tuned. This is going to be a longer video than I expected it to be, but I think it's really important that we find out what works, or at least gives you some ideas on what you can do. I'll see you in a bit. I'm back. I have done some sanding on these pieces, these two coasters that I made. So we had the two pieces. One I went out and sanded straight away to see what would happen, and the other one has had at least 12 hours. It has not had 24. And I went out and sanded it. Now, I know which piece is which because this side has not been sanded at all, and this was the piece that I left overnight. And I didn't do anything with that because I didn't want to confuse the two pieces. So this is what I've managed to pull up on the coaster. Now, again, I've done a ton of sanding, and for this one specifically, and I want to make sure I've got the right, and I'm not 100% sure on that one, but on this one, I used an electric sander. And I expected, honestly, that when I used my electric sander, I would pull up a lot. Now, the grit wasn't, I'm trying to think if it might have been about a 320 grit sandpaper, but I seriously figured, use an electric sander and you're going to just pull up. And I haven't. So again, I question whether or not, because I'm sanding, if I'm actually sanding down the terrazzo at the same time I'm sanding down the ceramic resin, the white. And if that's the case, that doesn't work for me, because I'm going to be doing a lot more sanding. And the other thing I found too was I used a very coarse, I want to say an 80 or 100 grit as well. And what you're going to end up happening is the potential for scratches on your piece. And again, still, it took a lot of sanding. I probably, moving forward, won't necessarily use the terrazzo chips that I have in ceramic resin. I'm going to be more apt to use it in two-part epoxy. because it'll show up. I don't have to sand it, which would be really nice. Like I don't know, for me personally, I don't want to be spending hours sanding this stuff. The only wet dry sandpaper grit that I have is 600 plus. And obviously you're going to need something, I think, that's a more coarse grit sandpaper to pull this up. Yeah, so like I say, I was shocked that my sander was having a hard time. And I took a lot of the white off of these. Like I had a lot on my work table out in the garage. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. I am going to do a video in the future where I put something else in, like a pebble, sand, glass, something that won't be as impacted, I think, is what the Terrazzo chips are as far as sanding goes. I mean, I love how the inside of this looks. I have not done anything else to the outside. I didn't take it outside. I haven't sanded it down. Will I? I don't know. I mean, this looks nice, and I like the contrast between the outside and the inside. But like I say, I might be hard-pressed to do another piece of the ceramic resin with the Terrazzo chips in it because of the work that has to go into it. So my question to you, or my ask of you, if you've worked with this and you've done some sanding on it and you've got a really quick and easy way of doing this, I would love you to put that in the comments below, because am I the only one in the world who's struggling with this? I doubt it. I would love some tips, because I'm more than happy to try them out if you've got tips. So the other thing that concerns me a little bit too, like we talked about in this one, about it the more you sand it, the integrity of the piece being affected. I look at something like this coaster. Let me get rid of this because I don't want to keep hitting it. The thickness. Now, granted, these were different thicknesses, so please don't think that, I've sanded that much down. I sanded a lot, but, they were slightly different thicknesses, so let's not take that. But how thick do you have to make a piece in order to accommodate the sanding you're going to do with it? That's my other question. So I do love the look. I do love the look. I'm not sure I want to spend the time doing as much sanding as I think I'll have to do to really pull up the chips on these two pieces and to try and pull up on the side of this. So that's just my thoughts on it. Like I say, if you have some really cool ways of making this less of a struggle, maybe I need a heavier grit. Maybe I need a wet, dry, heavier grit and use water with it. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a beautiful and creative day. Until the next video, take care. Bye for now.